Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Zulu's Painting Show. My name is Rob, and I needed to have moved my mic before I got started. Sorry. There we go. Alright, so today, during the Zulu's Painting Show, I will be taking you through a conversion. One of the employees, for lack of a better term, one of the people that I work with, is going to be running an X-Wing tournament here in the next couple of weeks. I put in the description a link to the Star Wars event. If you're in the greater Seattle area, you can come down, get some X-Wings or X-Wing or Armada models on the table, move them around, have a good time. What we're going to be doing today is going to be doing a little conversion on a Z95 Headhunter. Brain turned off for a moment. We're going to try and make it match the Houndstooth. I'll be honest, I haven't played in quite some time, but apparently there is a version of the Z95 that attaches to the Houndstooth, so we want them to have a similar paint job. If we get done with that, I've got a Y-Wing that I've got an idea for its paint job. We'll get to that in a minute. So let's go ahead and head down to our camera. So we've got actually a brand new camera today. We're going to be testing this guy out. Oh. Let's see how that looks. Overall, I'm liking the look of it. We get some good colors, some good zoom, and I believe you can see the purple so much better on this camera than you could on the last one. So you can actually see the different colors of the purple, which is very exciting. So if we get to one day return to these guys, we'll actually be able to see the colors we're supposed to see, as opposed to the strange washed out version that we saw before. But that's not what we're going to be working on today. We're going to be working on this little guy. This is our Z95 Headhunter. This is the one from, oh, I forgot the box. I believe this is the Hive of Scum and Villainy. Came with two of these guys and a Y-Wing. So the first and sort of interesting thing is we're going to have to figure out what color the Headhunter had, or so the Houndstooth has. I took a picture of the model to try and get myself a sense of it. It's kind of a yellowy orange, almost kind of a muddy color. So this is going to be interesting. We're going to play around with it a little bit. We're going to have some fun, and I think we should be doing all right. Actually, let me pull up our... We're going to go ahead and start with, I think we're going to start with a thin layer of our Aberlin Sunset. I'm going to go ahead and start with that, see if we can get ourselves a good base color, and then our washes we're going to use are going to be nice and kind of more red or orangey, and that'll hopefully start getting us more towards the color we want. Give this guy a good proper shake. And by shake, I of course mean vigorous vibration on my paint shaker. But noticing this guy's been having some trouble recently. It's been a little thick. It's sort of a shame. You know, actually, now that I'm looking at it, you know what? It's going to be a strange one. So we're gonna divert, partially because this is causing me trouble, and partially because now that I'm looking at it, I think if we actually start with our Barbarian Flesh, that might not be a bad spot to start. So let's go ahead and start there. I figure if we start with the Barbarian Flesh, then do a nice sort of red or orange wash, that'll be a good conversion. What we might do is we might start on one of these wings, get our color down, and then move to the rest of the ship. Because we don't want to spend the entire time getting the whole ship done and then realize, oh, well, that's not how we want it. Plus, I'm interested to see how we've got this little symbol here on the wing. I'm wondering how that's gonna deal once I start getting some colors on it. So, gotta get my flesh tone all shaken up. I was ready for the yellow, and then the last second realized, you know, maybe a slightly different color. Get our flesh shade all properly mixed. And then we're just going to put a little dollop on our wet palette here. Now I like to use a wet palette because it lets the paint stay sort of moist and ready to be used the entire time we're working. I don't generally use it from session to session, but it's nice to make sure that the whole session I'm going to be able to use my my paint. Now, if you'll notice, I'm not using my fancy handle today. That's partially because this base is too large for it. So what I've done is I've put a little piece of sticky tack on the bottom of the base. I've got this here. What is this? Medium that I have. And it's just a little something extra for me to be able to hold on to. Actually, move my palette over here so I don't put my hand in it. Alright, this is going to be an interesting color. The ship's going to look a little strange for a little bit, but that's okay. This is, we're experimenting with different colors to see if we can get the right sort of look for this guy. I know it feels a little strange to take a model that's already been painted and to put another coat of paint on it. I am right there with you. This is a strange new experience for me. We're going to learn about this together. So the red, I think, is going to be a little easier to do. All the parts that are black here, I'm just going to put the red on. Start with a nice, deep red. We're going to probably use the Chaotic Red from Army Painter. It has a really nice color to it. It's almost brown, and I think will be a good start point. Well, maybe we do have a very dark start, so maybe we don't need to really do. Gotta make sure I get a good angle for you guys. Yep. So we've got a little bit of that other symbol showing through, which I was a little concerned about, but I don't think will be too much of a problem. Nothing else that'll add some interesting contrast to it. Now, as you can see, we've already begun to lose some of those details. On this side, you can really see those ridges of the wings, whereas this side is really flattened out. That's because we don't have our wash on. Everything's just one flat color. So, I forgot to mention what brush I was using. For this one, we went ahead and started with the Regiment brush. Just a good all-around brush. Sharp bristles, but big enough that you can really get some paint on them. So we've got our first layer of our flesh tone on there, which I know is a bit odd, but I think in the end will work out very nicely. We're then going to go ahead and go to our, let's go ahead and go with the Earth Shade. So I'm going to grab some Agrax Earth Shade, give that guy a good, proper mix. Bringing this thing back up to orange is going to be interesting, but we're experimenting, you know, we're trying to figure things out. We're learning together. So we're going to go ahead and go to our monster brush. And then we'll go ahead and just fill our brush up with that wash. And then we're just going to cover the whole thing with a layer of the Earth Shade. And it's already doing some strange things, and I'm not sure that I like it. See, we're learning together. Remember, we're not making mistakes here. We're making happy accidents. Quick clean. It seems the paint is having a rough time holding on to this here wing. I wonder if that was because I didn't give it enough time to dry. Could be that because I don't have a layer of primer on here, it's giving me troubles, but let's see why it would. See, that paint just came right off. So what we're going to do is we're going to reapply that thin coat of Barbarian Flesh. Just to redistribute that. Make sure we don't fill up any of those details. And then, once we've got that on there, we're just going to give that a good long minute to dry. No reason to rush it. We've got a whole model to paint. So after we've got the flesh shade on there and drying, we'll go ahead and go to our red color. And which red do we want to start with? You know what? Let's go ahead and start with some chaos red. Good, bright red. It'll be dulled down by the color of the black undercoat. So I think if we were to start with too dark of a color, we'd have a real heck of a time making it so that it was light enough to really read as red. We want to make sure that this feels like red as we're doing it, but a nice deep solid red. Sorry for that sound, give me a moment. And we're back. Now, if you haven't used these Citadel pots before, we haven't used them on a palette before, the easiest way I've found to get them out of the pot is to just take one of your thinner brushes, grab a little on the back there, and then just roll it onto your palette. Now you'll be tempted to just take the paint straight from the pot, put it onto your model, but that's going to be a trap right there. Because the problem is the paint in the pot is far thicker than you'll want to put just directly on your model. I've said this before, but it's kind of like baking. If you've got a cake that's baking at 450 degrees for 20 minutes, you can't turn the cake up to 900 degrees and only cook it for 10. You just end up with a burnt cake. Same as with painting. You can't just thicken up your paints and slap a single coat on. You want to do several thin coats. That's partially because you'll be able to let some of the other color through. It's also partially because if you have, like we did before with the wing there, a little happy accident, you aren't stuck with the paint being very thick, sort of globbed on there. That's a nice red. And what's nice is because someone has already taken the time to come up with a paint job for this guy, all we have to do is sort of follow the lines that they created and just convert their colors. All right. And again, we're still just using the regiment brush because it's got enough size to it that you can really get some paint on there, but you can get fine enough tip that you can really get some good details. Find that focal range so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. I run into that trouble sometimes where I forget exactly where you guys can see. Oh, interesting. On the camera, this color is much brighter than it is for me. Sorry for the underside. It's always kind of hard to get on camera. Now, I've seen some other conversions, and in their conversion, the orange goes all the way up onto the wing, but I figured, you know, let's go ahead and follow the look that they already gave us. Luckily, we got two, so we can play around with it. This is your Headhunter, so you get to decide where the red is and where that terrible flesh tone is. Let's go ahead and see if we can't get some wash on that. It's gotten a little drier now, so that should be a little nicer. So clean off our brush. Go back to our earth shade. Yeah. Grab our monster brush again. And if we end up pushing this paint off a second time, then we'll just have to accept this doesn't need to get primed. I'll have to start back over. Oh, that's looking much better. Still not quite the yellow I was looking for, but it's a good start. Got ourselves a good sort of base color. And you can see now with the wash on there, you can really see the different colors starting to really pop out. Alright, well, so we weren't ever going to stop on that color anyway. So I suppose we'll let that dry. When we do, just keep on getting some red on this guy. Back to our regiment brush. Grab some more of our corn red. And I use a combination of the Citadel and the Army Painter because, well, that's the paints that I've sort of collected over the years. You can, whatever paints that you have in your collection are good paints for you. There's actually quite a few videos on the internet talking about the difference between sort of the hobby paints versus craft paints. It's a lot of interesting information out there if you're looking to figure that out. Now it looks like whoever painted this guy here before us got a little overzealous with their black, got a little bit of it onto the body of the ship. So we'll go ahead and be able to correct that for him. Our first painter was probably going quick. Has a whole bunch of these guys to do and not a lot of time to do it in. We got a little bit more time to take our time. As you can see, this red is drying very, very dark. It's always something to keep in mind. You see the front of the ship with that very bright red color. You see the back here with that much more sort of maroon color. You gotta remember that your paints are going to dry a slightly different color than the color that they started out. So, you always kind of keep that in mind. In the same way that our wing here, as it begins to finish drying, is going to slightly change its color as well. It's getting close, so we're just going to keep on doing our red for a little bit more until we're ready to throw our yellows on there to really try to make it look yellow as opposed to now where it looks sort of, well, it still looks kind of fleshy. I don't know about you, but I feel like Star Wars, where the ships have wings made of meat, is a very different Star Wars than the ones that I watched originally. Now, if you'll notice on occasion, my hands will sort of touch as I'm painting. That's so I can stabilize my hands, make sure I can keep them nice and even and steady as I'm doing my painting. Because what I don't want is for my hands to be wiggling around, making my colors go all over the place. I often don't like to touch the model itself, partially because if I've got paint on my finger, now I've put paint on the model in a big old fingerprint. But also because on occasion, if the paint is still wet, you can rub it off, or if even if it's actually already dry, too much contact will cause it to begin to rub off. Now, for spots like this that are sort of hard to get into, oh, yep, I've already made a mess. It's always good to try and get those before, or get your lowest colors first, so that as you're going back over the top, you can make sure that you're getting the spots that you went over. That's the thing to remember when you're painting these guys. You can make little happy accidents on places, but as long as you're going to go back over it with another color, you can. Most people won't even know that you did that. All right, so we're starting to get some color on here, and I'm going to be honest. Were this thing just to be that white and the red, I think that'd be a very nice conversion itself. But we want it to have that nice orangey color of the hound's tooth. So we're going to keep on doing. Now, we've spent all this time with this skin tone here. The more I'm looking at it, the more I'm thinking that may not be the direction we want to go. It's just maybe not the color I'm looking for. Sorry for the distance on this. It's hard to paint the underneath side of things and keeping it close enough to the camera to see it. Alright, now I'm going to wait on these engines because I got some ideas for those. I want to play around with the color there a little bit, see what we can do. For now, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and grab a slightly different color. Because I don't ultimately like what happened with this. We want it to be orange, but we've gone the wrong direction. I'm going to check our reference picture again. Get a better look. It's almost a sort of a mustardy yellow. How did I get mustard? You know, maybe instead of flesh color, what if we started sort of here? That's kind of got a nice brown color to it. And then we can put our orange over top of that. And I think that'll look quite nice. So, less meat wings, more brown wings. Give the paint a shake. Grab some out of our pot using our brush. Oh, that's a much more appropriate color for a spaceship. We want to thin the paint out so it's not too thick. And remember, your palette you can use to help you sort of tell what your colors are doing. Paint around it a little bit, see what the colors do. And as you grab your color, you spin your brush. That will, will sharpen the tip of your brush so you can have nice accuracy as you're painting. Remember, the side of your brush is always much easier to control than the very tip. Tip has a tendency to sort of wander and go its own way as you put other colors on it, or put any pressure on it. Sorry, I'm looking at this ship body and thinking about colors. Alright. So, from the beginning there, it already has a much sort of oranger color to it. So I think we're gonna stick with that color. Now, this is another reason why having thin coats is so important. So I can just go over this part and we'll just cover it right up. And we don't lose that detail because these are very nicely modeled, very nicely designed models. So they got a lot of color to it. Now we're going to go ahead and just, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and make a big decision here. We're just going to go ahead and use this color. I think this is much more what we're looking for. I think it will work quite nicely. So we're going to go ahead and start getting the rest of the ship. Now I want to go ahead and keep the surround of the cockpit because I like that color. It's a good color. So we're going to go ahead and just do the rest of the ship. Oh, we got a couple spots that are going to be tricky. I always end up getting quiet when I get to the parts that are very small and hard to reach. hard to concentrate and talk at the same time, and sometimes you really got to concentrate on what you're working on. Oh, see? And now we can clean up that tip. Just gonna come up to the side. Now, when you're doing stuff like this, what I like to do is you set your brush sort of on the model, and then you sort of slowly move it up towards where you're trying to get to. That way, you don't accidentally hit something you don't want it to. It's especially helpful when you've got multiple layers like this. Like, there's such a distinct step between the two parts. You can really just let your brush work for you. That's why I like to use the side of my brush so often, because it follows sort of a different set of rules than the tip. The tip sort of feels like an unruly teenager, where you can mostly tell it where you want to go, but the more pressure you put on it, the more likely it is just going to wander off. Now it's got sort of a mottled look right now. That's okay. We're just doing our first coat, so it doesn't necessarily have to be as sort of finely done. Get up here into the bottom, so I gotta make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. I don't want to get the clear of that. Of the stand here. Now, if I had prepared correctly, what I'd have done is surrounded that with tape so that I could get some paint on it and it wouldn't necessarily be bad. But I didn't, and that's okay. You just have to be careful. This ship's got a lot of angles and nooks and crannies. So now that I'm working on this guy, I'm thinking more, it would be fun maybe to take a ship and just do a completely custom paint job. You're doing a specific one and you're trying to match colors and do specific things. It always makes it a little bit more interesting. I like to be able to just sort of let my ideas of colors sort of run wild. That's what I've been doing with these BattleTech minis back here. We've been coloring through those and going over kind of where you can put colors and why you'd put them there. This one has a very specific look that it's going for, whereas those ones, they have a general paint scheme, but not like a specific paint scheme. Also, this paint in this underside is real hard to get on camera. It's not a great angle. Now, I didn't get to the bottom here, so I should probably do that red before I go going too crazy with my brown. I was saying you want to do those inner colors first. Hopefully you can't hear my computer trying to fly itself into space. Watches me painting all these X-Wing minis and just thinks, oh yeah, space is the destination. Alright. Before I get too far along, I should really do that red. See, it's starting to come along. Oh yeah, that's a much nicer color. I like that a lot better. Flesh color was a strange decision. That's okay. We're learning stuff together. That's why I figured I'd start with this. Never really done a conversion on a pre-painted mini. I Figured I'd give it a go, see how it went. Now I'm gonna go for a slightly thinner brush since we are kind of getting into the small spots. So we're gonna head over to our character brush. Use the character brush to really get into those little spots. Now the thing to remember when you've been using the regiment brush a lot and you switch over to your character brush is paint isn't as thick on the brush, which means you won't be able to put as much onto the model between grabbing more, and it'll dry up a lot faster. It's not pretty now, but we'll get the other paint on there and that'll pretty it up. It's just like when you were a kid and you were told to paint inside the lines. Some of us had a bit easier time with that than others. But, you know, I don't remember as much back in the day whether or not I was good at keeping in the lines. It's a nice thing about this clear base is you can actually see it through. Oh, that's very convenient. Especially because I got to get to the yeah. Don't worry, we'll cover up that white. We just got to get this red done first. We could be a little messier because we're going to be coming in just behind it with the orange and covering up the spots so we get the extra stuff on. God, so many little spots. Oh, got a little extra on there. That's okay. Remember on these first layers, especially the bottom ones, you can get a little extra on there, and that's okay. All right, let's go back to our. Oh, you know, as it's drying, it's starting to look even more orange. You know, I'm liking this. Back to our regiment brush, back to our brown. Now if you'll notice, I'm making sure not to leave any of my brushes in my water pot. That's because the pressure of the handle of the brush pushing down on the top of the bristles of the brush, you just get mashed up bristles. You really want to make sure you keep your bristles nice and sharp, fine. So you can, if you have a fancy stand like mine, you can put them in there, but if you don't have one of those, you can just take a cup and you can just put them in there. That way you can see your bristles easily. You can tell which ones you want. But you're not having to worry about the bristles get squished in your water. Oh, gotta remember to keep a good posture. I don't know if you do that while you're painting, but a lot of times when I'm painting, I'll slowly find my back sort of curling up like a shrimp. So I try to get closer and closer to my model. It's good not to do that. Make sure that back's nice. Now, what a lot of times I do, if I was just painting for fun, is I take the model, chuck it up next to me, supporting my arms on my belly, and just painting there. But since I gotta make sure that you guys can see it, I just gotta lean back a bit. Try and even out that paint on the top. I know we haven't finished the bottom and there's still that white there, but I don't know. I feel like I could use a little extra here on the nose. I feel like the nose is really the sort of the focus of this particular ship. So I gotta make sure it's a good looking nose. Oh, we got a big chunk of our brown on. Oh, now that was just. See? The first artist that came through here and did his thing now. Now it's easier to see how that happened. We did the same thing. But that's okay. We've got a little bit more time than they probably did, so we'll be able to go back and fix that. Starting to get that to look good. It's kind of nice. I'm going to finish up the bottom so I don't have to worry about forgetting about that later. Maybe we can come back and really focus on the top. Now, not a lot of people are going to be seeing the bottom of this model, but when they do, it's always nice to make it look like you finished up your work. Oh, and you can't see what I'm working on at all. It's unfortunately some spots it's really hard for me to get to and let you still see it, so I'll do what I can, but oh boy. And then, so it's easier to see on the top. So you've got these two little crossbars over the top of that red there. You got them on the bottom as well. But so trying to trace that with the tip of your brush will be real difficult to do. I mean, you could do it. I believe in you. But for this one, what I think we're going to do is just use the side of our brush. Let's see if you can kind of see that through the base. So you come in with the side, you just sort of run it along there. And that way you just get the very highest points there. I do that for a lot of different parts. Do that for those little rounds as well. So yeah, it's just a quick and easy way to make sure that you only get the very top part. Go and just lay your brush sideways, drag it along. It's just that easy. Oh, and this little bit of red we got here that oughtn't to be where it's at is gone. Well, it's nearly gone. We'll have to do a couple layers to really get it gone, but that's okay. We're going to go through and do a couple layers anyway. Make sure we get a nice even coat. We've gotten to the small part silence of the show. I work very diligently to get a spot, only to realize that I've been quiet and it's not framed correctly. But I'm getting faster at recognizing it, so hopefully it'll be less time with you guys just staring at my fingers. Oh man, I had to tell you, this clear base makes painting this guy a lot easier. Let's see all the stuff. Alright. See, now that I got this on here and it's gotten a little dried, makes me think why we spent so much time with that flesh color in the beginning. That's okay. Alright. So now we're getting to the very top of this guy. Now you can, oops, sorry about that. You can still sort of see some of those little suns, but it's alright. I got a plan to get rid of those. They are pretty designed, but it's also another great example of just what your undercoat, keeping in mind what your undercoat is, and knowing that it will have an effect on your colors. If nothing else, just a small hint of a circle. Alright, now we're really getting into it. I'm going to do the fronts of the engines. I really want to make sure I don't get that nice red that we've painted already. And once we've got this this base color down, we're almost done. Then we get to really get to the fun part. One of the things I very much enjoy doing and I think is very appropriate for an X-Wing miniature, is battle damage. A lot of different ways to paint on your damage on your ship, and we'll be going over a couple different methods, and I'm very excited for that. Again, going to the side of the brush just to really make sure that we get the top of that beam to make it so that it's the right color. Got a couple of light spots along the engine. Curved surfaces coming to flat surfaces are always sort of a hard one. So, oh, that's looking very nice. I'm liking how that's looking so far. Every once in a while, once you've been painting with the same color, feel free to clean out your brush. Might be getting a little gummed up, might be getting a little too much paint in there. And just rinse it off good. This pot's nice because it has little ridges at the bottom, so you can really just drag your brush along those, really get the paint off it. And again, in the same way that when you're grabbing the paint from your palette, you spin your brush, do the same thing on your paper towel when you dry off your brush. So really make sure that that tip stays nice and sharp. If you find that it's gotten a little bit too unruly, a little crease on your hand there, when you close it, you can, pinch my finger. You can put it in there, pinch it, and then pull and twist. It'll sharpen up that bristles for you. But you'll want to do it with it nice and clean, otherwise you'll just fill your hand with paint. As much fun as that is, it's also more fun to just get the paint on the model. Yeah, now we're definitely to the stuff that's really in there. Now that it's gotten the color almost entirely on it, I'm really starting to like this color scheme. And you'll see, as soon as I get a wash on this, we're going to bring a lot of those details on the ship back, and I'm very excited for that. These ships are very nicely modeled. I mean, Star Wars ships have always been a very good-looking one, but I think these ones really capture a lot of that color. Oh, not color. A lot of that shape. I think they call them Greebles. These are all little things that you'd use from model kits to make them look like they had, tubes and other things on them. Like, there's a handful of videos on the internet of people talking about different designs they had for making Star Wars ships. Adam Savage of Mythbusters worked on Star Wars for quite a bit. He talks a lot about making different models and things. It's just very enjoyable. I like learning about how the models are built. There's always a part of me that was a little sad knowing that studios weren't really going to be using miniatures anymore. So I would have really enjoyed to have made miniatures for movie sets, bring ideas to life in miniature. Now, I know that I could still do that with CGI. Become a CGI artist and essentially make those miniatures, but in a three-dimensional world. I like the physicality of getting in here and painting these guys. That's just a lot of fun for me. Get into those little nooks and crannies. It's good sometimes as you're finishing up a color to just, you know, have a quick look over the model and see how it looks. Oh, there we go. That's very nice. Got a nice orange to it. Orangey brown. Got some texture in a couple places, and that's okay. We'll get that cleaned up. But first things we're going to do, since we got it all covered, now let's hit the whole thing with a nice wash. Darken up those details and bring out some more of the colors. Again, I keep calling them colors for some reason. They're not colors. They're modeling. When you're staring at colors, you ever tried to do that? There's a little experiment you can do where it's a series of words, series of names of colors, but they're all written in different colors than the word says. So the word green might be done in the color orange. And you have a real hard time saying the right thing. All right. Now we might play around. I got some glazes that I have that are yellow and red. We might play around with some glazes, but the first thing we got to do is really get this guy all washed up. Oh yeah. See, and immediately you can start to see those details again coming back. You know, want to make sure it's a nice even coat, because it'll sort of pool in places if you're not careful. There we go. We got those details of the fuselage back, which is nice. I can go to our wings. All those wing details just popping right back up. I like a good wash. I feel like a wash is a great way to really tie together a paint job. So you can really see all those modeling details. Plus you can really change up what your color looks like too. I've had a couple paint streams before where I talk about where I take say a very similar color to this one, and then use a red wash. Actually makes it look very much like a tree. We're gonna have to do something with those missiles. We can't just have them painted the same color. And if you ever find yourself realizing that, oh, I got too much there on a place, you can use the same sort of capillary action of the brush that lets it hold the paint in the first place to wick it up from other places. Just got to make sure that you don't have any paint on your brush, or you've taken a lot of it off, and then hold it up to where you want to remove the paint, and it'll just slurp it right up. All right, I got a good bit. I can show you what I mean here on the bottom, because that is way too much wash. So we're going to clean off the brush, dry it off, because the water works just like the paint in filling out the brush. I'm just going to take it and we're going to push it up next to it, and it strengthens it right up. There we go. Hopefully I didn't just cover that while I was showing you my example. All right. Oh, see, you know, I like that look a lot better. All right, we'll let that dry. And then clean up some of the red. And then I think what we need next, do some line highlighting with our slightly brighter red. Really bring out the colors on that. So first things first, let's go ahead and fix our little happy accident on the nose of the ship. Yeah, that's a big old happy accident. Oh, this color looks so bright when it's still wet. We know it's gonna dry much darker. So to get it to stay kind of brighter red like that, I have to go to a slightly different color. Perfect. And you don't always need a smaller brush. Sometimes what you need for certain areas is just a little patience. Just a little bit of extra patience. Now, I don't know if we're going to get all the way done with this guy today, although it is starting to look pretty nice as it is. Still got a little bit more time, so let's go ahead and do a little work on that red. We're going to go to our Evil Sun's Scarlet. That's a little bit lighter of a red. Drop an agitator in here so it can be properly mixed. I got a whole passel of agitators, and I've just been putting them into the paints as I get to them. You know, honestly, I'm really starting to like this color just as it is. You could, if you wanted, leave it here, and it'd look perfectly fine on the tabletop. We're going to add a little bit more in a couple places to just really help just make it sing. Always remember to close your paints. Had a couple incidences where the paint didn't get closed, and well, that was trouble later. So we're going to go ahead and go to our character brush. A little bit finer details. I think it'll be nice for what we're doing here. Make sure our paint is nice and thin. Because this one, more than the other ones, we're really going to want to let the color show through. We're just slightly changing the color just a little bit. Right. So what we're going to do here is along these ones here, we're just going to kind of hit the tops. I'm just doing top of the gun. And as you can kind of see, there's now sort of a distinction between the top of the gun and the bottom and the color of the paint. So when you're looking at it from a profile, there's just lighter reds on the tops and then darker reds on the bottoms. So what it'll do is it really helps sell that idea of there being light and shadow playing around on these guns. So you still have that kind of deeper color, but where light would be hitting the top of the guns, it lightens up that red just a little bit. And again, I'm just using the side of my brush, just running it very lightly along the top. Just very lightly along the top. So now, get it into focus. As you can see, we got that light color there, the dark color there. You've created the illusion of shadow. It's just a lot of fun. Now, what we're going to do is for this top part here, we're going to do kind of a similar thing. So we've got these arced pieces. So just the tops of those have that light. I would have that lighter red. So we're just going to hit the tops. We're just going to come a little ways down the side, but not too far. Just a little bit on the top. So that way from the side, you can still see there are those two colors. So we're looking directly from the top, it's nice and bright. And then as we come along the sides here, you can see that it starts to darken up. Kind of like you would get with shadows. Now, with these guys being sort of inset, you don't want to do a lot. Just want to hit just a little bit on the tops of those parts. You just want to give just the faintest sort of idea of lighter parts. You want to not get your paint on the wrong spots like I did, but that's okay. I got a little extra wash there. We'll just make sure to keep our brush out of the wash. There we go. And if we want, we can just add just a little bit more of a second coat just on the very tops. Just to really sell that bright color. And again, we've got two colors on those reds because we really want to sell the idea of depth to them. It really makes it sing. Do a little bit on the nose of the ship, and then we'll have to call it for today. We might, if this is something that you guys would like to return to, I have another ship that I want to do some conversions on. Maybe do some damage on this ship, because having a ship that looks like it's been through battle, I think is a lot of fun. So again, because we got this very thin paint, it's going to show the color underneath much more easily. So for this one, we're just going to hit the parts that would get would get more light. We're going to get more paint. Create that illusion of shadow and light. So again, if you're looking directly on the side of it, you can see there's a nice line between the dark red and the light red. There we go. See, and just a little bit of extra color, and we've taken and really made those colors pop, really made them sing, which is a lot of fun. Well, we had a little bit of trouble there at the beginning, playing around with some strange colors, which is okay. I'd like to do a little highlights like I did on this, on the orangey yellow part. I think we've gotten a good start on this guy. We've got the reds looking nice and bright and vibrant, while still having a nice deep darkness to him. We got the base coat done with the ship, so now all we have to do is finish highlighting the orange, or the orangey yellow, the brown, I guess, and then And then we'll do some nice battle damage. And just for comparison, this is... Oh, I've got a stick for it. There we go. So this was what we started at, and this is where we are now. So as you can see, we've already made a lot of progress in making a very interesting new model. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm very thank you so much for joining me. I had a lot of fun. We're going to be continuing doing painting. We're here every Wednesday from 1 to 2. But until that, have a great time painting. Stay safe out there, and I will see you guys next Wednesday.